Is a breakout coming in TLT? Well, according to the Wyckoff price cycle, one's about to happen. I'm your host, Steven Van Metre, and let's take a look at what's going on and how you can take advantage of this. First, let's start. What is a Wyckoff price cycle? Well, if you're not familiar with it, it is simply a look at an accumulation area where a stock is sold or a security is sold into an oversold condition, where large players accumulate shares. Those shares are then marked up where demand is greater than the supply, and then they later sell them in the distribution area where the security is overbought, and then the cycle goes down into a markdown phase where supply is greater than demand, rinse, and repeat. Now, these are often done on a much broader scale. People will look at them on a daily or weekly, daily chart in terms of maybe within the hour or in very small increments. You want to look at these at a broad scale over several months, because that's where they're going to show up, is in major market bottoms where large players are accumulating huge amounts of shares. So let's take a look in a little more detail at an example of a Whyckoff bottom. Now, we've looked at this before. We see a security selling down here, and it starts moving in between a trading range where it establishes an upper end zone and a lower end zone. And as it moves back and forth, the reason it's not going lower is because as sellers continue to sell down, buyers are accumulating shares here. And then the security will go through what we see here as a creek. It'll kind of sell down and retest this bottom end of the zone. In fact, it may even go a little further, and this is designed to really shake out the sellers, to really give them confidence that they're about to win. Sellers come in, sell a large amount of shares, and then of course buyers are there waiting for them. And it will continue this process until most of the sellers are shook out, and we can see that in the volume. Then price will spring. You see it says spring here. It'll spring higher into what is an SOS. Now, if you're not sure, you can go to this website. There's tons of websites on the Wyckoff method, and you'll find SOS is signal of strength. So where is the price moving back up into this low end of the trading range that has been previously established? Then the sellers will come back into the LPS, and the LPS is nothing more than the last point of support. So let's go take a look at TLT and see if we can find these patterns in there. And certainly you can. You can see how it was sold down into a trading range defined roughly by this cayenne in these purple lines, and you can see where sellers have been in here mopping up shares. Now, what's interesting about this is people often think the buyers need to come in here and support this move down, and that is not true. You're seeing buyers here in all of this volume. Buyers are very clear. They're buying between, say, 136 and 141. They've been buying all throughout here. Now let's zoom in a little bit to see if we can identify that creek, because what we see is a move sell down, comes back up, and it's bouncing around this range, and then all of a sudden here, something interesting happens. So let's zoom in and look at, let's see, a 90-day chart, and here is, we can go to the 30-day. What you can see here is that creek, and if you're not sure what we're looking at, let's just go back real quick, and you can see here's that creek where it goes down and it retests into that low. And sure enough, if we go back and look at the chart, it went down and retested into that low. Now what's interesting, we'll zoom back out from a volume perspective. Volume then after that fell, and this is really important, and the reason we're looking for a low volume day is because it's an indication that the sellers are running out of shares to sell. It comes back down, retests that, and makes a move higher. And let's go in and look at where we are on the schematic on that. So there's that move up into the SOS zone, or again, just to remind you, signal of strength. So runs back up and is pulling back to that last point of support. So let's see if we're right in this zone right here of last point of support. And we can do that pretty easily by looking at the 50-day moving average. And this is a good indicator if you're looking for bottoms. Remember, rallies will start with a cross of the 50-day and a confirmation. So you see prices crossed the 50-day, didn't confirm it. And then when crossed it again, unable to confirm. Up again, unable to confirm. It's still trying to hold above that, but you'll notice the 50-day moving average is flattening out. And if you count back 50 days, you'll find out we're right in here with about 2.5 weeks of these candles to move out, which means that will put upward pressure as these lower numbers are moved out of the formula as days pass. So the 50-day moving average should start to curve up, and that acts kind of as a level of support and pushes price, gives buyers some confidence in this. So let's zoom in a little bit more on the 10-day, and you can see prices holdings right around this 2.3% zone. So if we went and looked at 30-year yields, this 138 to 138.20 is right in this zone of about 2.3%. But how do we know this is the last point of support? Well, we can do an overlay with a volume profile here, and you can see this heavy volume in the last 10 days is at 138.17. And so what it's telling you is this last point of support is right in this zone. Now, in an ideal point, we would like it to hold this every day, but it hasn't. It's right within this range between, say, 138 on the kind of low end of the zone, and on the high end, it's around 138.29-ish. So you're seeing what looks like a last point of support. Now, let's zoom back out and see what is supposed to happen next according to Wyckoff. And the next move then is it holds this last point of support and then makes a big move through the trading range, the resistance levels. And let's go take a look at that before it makes a second pullback to the last point, the new last point of support. So what would that imply is prices should run up here, perhaps even into the 100-day moving average, which we should note its descent is also slowing down. Its momentum is slowing down. And what that does is it brings in some people that are very short timers who are looking to capitalize on a move, and then they get flushed out by sellers, which would bring the selling pressure back down in between this range here. And if we go back to the volume profile, what you see is this heavy level of trading volume is at 139.58. And this will then look to act as a level of support when it breaks up through here and then comes back down to confirm. And at that point, the pattern is completed. And then from there, you see all the shares have been absorbed. And now you move into that markup phase that we can go back and look right here. So we're seeing a lot of things that tell us we're at near the end of the Whyckoff price cycle. And this is very interesting because a lot of people don't think interest rates could go down or bond prices go up. And you might, if you've been a fan of the macro show for a while, do you remember, are higher yields or lower yields a sign of financial conditions tightening or easing? Tightening or easing? Lower yields, tightening or easing? The answer is it's tightening, and the market is not prepared for that at all. It does not think that's possible. Now, what about for those of you who are subscribers to the open beta for Momentum Timer Pro? Now, what is it telling us? Now, if you're not sure what Momentum Timer Pro is, let me tell you real quick and show you what it is. It is a service, it's an open beta right now, so it's completely free. So I'll link it in the description if you want to sign up and get this. It's a daily report that runs a screen of price and momentum. It is fully formula based. So it has nothing to do, a lot of people have asked, does this have anything to do with your macro thesis? No, we'll get into that and shortly before the end of the video. There's some questions have come in for those of you in the open beta. I'd like to answer them. But what this report does is it looks at price and momentum over different intervals, and then it determines if there is a buy, sell, or neutral. So let's go and look at this report. This is today's report as of June 3rd. And if we go down to the bond section, what we find is TLT, which we're looking at, is holding a neutral on the monthly. Now, those of you that have subscribed from the beginning, remember this used to be a sell signal just a matter of days ago, as did ZROS, which is a 25-year zero coupon treasury ETF, and as did IEF, which is a lower risk 7 to 10-year treasury bond ETF. So what you're looking for in terms of how to use this report is not to go find the ones that have buy signals already, but to find ones that are going from sell to neutral and then a buy. So right now we're sitting on neutral, and upon closer inspection of the formula, I have assessed that perhaps within 5 maybe 10 trading days, this has the potential to flip into a buy signal, and that's how close we are from the underlying formula. That would be a point where you can then go to the position sizing guide, which is next to it. Currently says none, and it will give you an indication if you should take a small, a mid-size, medium, or maximum position. Of course, that's not relative to 100% of your portfolio, but relative to what your maximum position size that you're willing to take for any security that you own. So what we want to see is on the monthly, a move from neutral to buy, and from a momentum perspective, we're seeing that. So we're seeing some validation not only in this major Wyckoff bottom, but we're also seeing it in the momentum timer pro formulas. Now, what does this mean in terms of the next phase for bonds? A lot of people ask that question. Where does this go? Well, let's go back to this chart, and we'll take off the volume profile, because what happens is once you end an accumulation zone, you're going to make a new all-time high. That's the whole point, is to drive prices up to a new high and then run through a distribution pattern and then sell them down. That's the whole idea. So what we'd expect to see is TLT, in this case, go through its prior all-time high at 172, and likely that would put a huge amount of pressure to see long rates go near 0%, possibly even to 0. So it makes it very interesting. This setup down here is giving you a lot of indication that in the next, say, week or two, we should be close to this ending and get a signal on a breakout. And now on to the questions from Momentum Timer Pro. Again, if you're looking to sign up for the open beta, it's totally free. Link is in the description. So answers to your questions. Again, does this have anything to do with my broad macro thesis? The answer is absolutely nothing. So why am I creating this? Why are we doing this? Why am I showing this? Because I usually take 3 to 5 year lengths in terms of how I want to invest money. That's how you tend to get the largest returns. It also takes a lot of stress off. You're not checking your account every day, every week, every month. You don't have to worry about it as long as your data and research says we're going from here to there. And if you look at some of the most successful investors out there, Warren Buffett, Jeffrey Gunlock, and so forth, they're all long-term investors. They take very long-term positions. Some people like Buffett own companies, whereas people like Gunlock invest in different securities. Now, in the between that, there are cycles, and if you're wondering why sometimes I miss them, well, you probably have, if you've heard my interview with Corey Cleveland, you know about my fatigue issues from my body. I have genetic issues, and you can go listen to the interview and find out. So for me, what I wanted to do is a couple of things. I wanted a tool where no matter how I felt that day, I could open it up and it would give me a list of high probability choices. It would run the screens for me. And then from that, my goal is to eventually build a momentum investment strategy where it will even allocate all the positions. Now, there are people who have attempted to make momentum strategies in the past, and they're all terrible. Well, I think I can do a better job. And then because so many of you are fans and are interested in this, I thought, well, maybe I could make something for you, and so you could experience it as well. In fact, the idea is at some point this whole program will become international, because right now, let me go back and I'll show you, it's all just U.S. We have U.S. equity ETFs here. We've got foreign and emerging market, bond, U.S. These are all U.S. ETFs, bonds, commodities, currencies. But what we don't have are some basic portfolio models, which I'd like to do. We don't have a back test. Many of you have asked if I could build one of those. I'm going to work on that. And I also notice that most of the people that are following this are outside of the US or in Australia, Canada, or India. So perhaps in some order of that, we will look to add those securities. But I don't want to start adding them. I know some people are like, oh, can we start adding stuff? I need to get the bugs worked out, because bug fixes, the more securities I have, the longer it took. And we've had to fix some bugs because those of you that were with us from the beginning know that I had to switch data providers literally the morning of launch, and that took a while to do. So I think they're all worked out, but I don't want to add just yet because it takes a lot of time to fix. So how do you use this report? Again, look from the bottom up. That is the real key focus here. Look for those signals that are changing from sell to neutral and then to buy, and then when it hits the buy, you'll see the position size change. Some other questions that come in is, hey, what do these colors mean? The colors mean a change from the prior day. So it makes the report pretty easy to look at. You can open it up. If you're familiar with your positions, you could say, okay, nothing in the equity positions I need to look at. Maybe you don't own any foreign emerging markets. Maybe you don't have any bonds, but you go, I've got some commodities. What's going on here? Okay, platinum went to a neutral on the monthly, no position, and you can see on the biannual it went to a minimum. So that probably means it went from mid to minimum. Now, some people have asked, can you put directional arrows on here? That's really difficult to do to the extent of I don't think it's possible. This is all being done in Excel. So it's not being done in a third-party program. So we'll just say no, but you do have the prior day's report to refer back to. So that's kind of some updates on Momentum Timer Pro and this Wyckoff bottom in TLT. And I will see you tomorrow for the macro show. Thanks for watching. Of course, thanks for being fans. And it's pretty exciting to watch this break out and to see Momentum Timer Pro catch it in real time, which is, of course, why we're doing the open beta. I'm Steven Van Metre. By now, the content of this video is provided as educational information only. It's not intended to provide investment or other advice. This material is not to be construed as a recommendation or solicitation to buy or sell a security, financial instrument, or to participate in a particular trading strategy. This video was prepared by Steven Van Metre, person capacity. Opinions expressed in this video and do not reflect the view of Atlas Financial Advice Inc. or Steven Van Metre Financial.